Everyone's got their favorite game. Could be a classic like Halo 2. It could be something that's come out recently like Cyberpunk 2077. It could be a game that may be objectively bad, but something about it makes it your favorite game. An example for me would be DayZ. DayZ was my favorite game for many years back in 2013, even though it had so many issues that even persist till this day. But at the time, the zombie survival multiplayer genre didn't really exist yet. So this became my favorite game, at least for some time. And I think everyone has also got their favorite game on a very specific device. A favorite PS2 game, a favorite Xbox 360 game, a game to that specific device for that particular generation. And I think the same can also be said for the Steam Deck. Now the deck is a bit different from something like the PlayStation 2 or the Xbox 360. This device could be used as like a primary device, but I think most people would say that they use it alongside their primary gaming PC. I know that's the main reason I got it. Usually you start a game on your gaming PC and you continue on your deck and then maybe finish it on your PC. That tends to be a pretty common thing amongst Steam Deck users. Now with that in mind, there's many games that I prefer to play almost exclusively on the Steam Deck, and I'm sure many of you can also relate to that. A lot of it has to do with the form factor, because some games are just way better to play laying down in bed, or sitting in an office, sitting on your couch, maybe going outside to the park, bringing the deck and playing on a bench or something on a nice day out. For me, the game with this form factor that I almost exclusively play on this device is Zero Sievert, my favorite game on the Steam Deck. To set the stage for it though, I mentioned earlier that DayZ was my favorite game for a very long time. That introduced me to their survival genre in general. That genre was popping off at that time. And I was excited to see what the future held for that genre. Then we get Escape from Tarkov. That game takes the whole world by storm and creates the extraction shooter genre that we know today. And it's an alternative take on their survival genre. Instead of an open world, you load into raids and you have very similar consequences on death, just like in DayZ. And in both games, when you die, you lose all your loot on your character. So the stakes are very high every time you play. For Tarkov though, there's a progression system that's outside of just getting loot and extracting with loot. In DayZ, the game acts more like a roguelike. Once you die, you spawn on a random location and start all over again. Nothing stays with you between each death. This is a very core difference that separates the survival genre from the extraction shooter genre. In the extraction genre, you get in a raid, you loot, you do some tasks, and then you get out with whatever you can. Now, because Tarkov is a more hardcore experience, there's no HUD, there's a competitive multiplayer component, it's very off-putting to a lot of people that may have some interest at first, but they're just off-put by the possible frustration by competitive multiplayer. And they tend to stay away because they don't want to get frustrated by dying over and over to some player that's way better than them that has like 1,000 hours. This is where the single player extraction shooter comes in. And this subgenre takes the intensity of the extraction shooter genre that's already there and then makes it like an exclusive PvE experience. And it even makes it co-op in some games. There's been a few that's come out in the last few years. We have Incursion Red River, which is like a standard military FPS that's also co-op. We've got the Forever Winter, which is like a third and first person post-apocalyptic spin on the genre with like giant mechs, factions, and it's also co-op. Then you have something like Escape from Tarkov, which is like a game that plays on the title of Tarkov, but the actual game itself is very different. It's nothing like Tarkov, only in the structure, but the actual gameplay is totally different. It's top down, it's exclusively single player, you're shooting ducks, there's base building where you're actually in the base, placing everything. It's just a total different game. Then you got Zero Sievert. Pixel art single player extraction shooter that takes inspiration from Tarkov and how that's played, but also plays a lot more like the Stalker series if you ever played those games. There's factions, there's reputation with factions, there's quests, there's base building, there's mutants, there's radiation, and there's so much more for a $20 price tag. There's so much to offer within that price tag, and it's become my favorite game on this device. Always stays installed on my hard drive. To start, this game's performance is fantastic. You can expect like a locked 60 FPS, and probably push 90 FPS if you have a Steam Deck OLED because of that refresh rate. I usually keep it down to 60 for battery life reasons. And there's some occasional dips in some of the later maps with the radiation storms and weather effects. The lowest that I've experienced was around like 40 to 45 FPS. But if you tweak a lot of the in-game settings, you can probably get a lock 60 no matter what. It's not something I really toyed with because the experience is just good on default settings, but the settings are there for you to adjust if you need to. The game is verified on Steam, so the devs put in a lot of work to get the controls and the performance just right for the Steam Deck. I like to start off with performance because I feel like if a game does not perform that well on the deck, it's not really worth talking about. You're just not gonna ever wanna pick it up because when you think about the game, you're thinking of playing in like a slideshow. It only takes up 500 megabytes as well, so you can throw this on like an SD card if that's your thing. This game also looks very distinct despite the pixel art style. The environment has so much character. There's a bunch of really cool effects like with the storms and the weather, and there's even some environmental effects like if you walk through a bush, the opacity of the bush kind of lowers. So you can see yourself in the bush, but that's a way of the game telling you like you're in the bush. It just reduces the opacity so you can see your character and see what you're doing. Then you've got blood on the walls and certain interiors. You've got rust on some of the vehicles. Like the art style shows itself right away the moment you load into a raid. Now, what do you do in the game? You choose one of several loadouts. You usually have like a backpack, 1 or 2 guns, some meds, some food, some water, and then you choose your difficulty. This is where you can really customize it. There's a bunch of sliders for difficulty settings. You can either make it as casual as you want it, so when you die, you keep all your stuff and just respawn in the base, or make it as hard as you want it, where it's permadeath. There's a lot of room in between that. I like to choose the second hardest, which is not necessarily permadeath, but every time I die, I lose all my loot. I don't lose my character, but my loot is gone. So once you load into the game for the first time, you spawn at this base where there's a bunch of NPCs, like a barman, a bunch of factions, a medical shop, a gun shop, there's beds to sleep in, and there's a custom section for your own base where you customize your own base, similar to something like State of Decay 1 and 2, where there's like slots in the base and you install modules on the base, like extra storage, like a workbench for your guns, a bench to repair your armor, things of that nature. And as you progress throughout the game, you unlock more maps and more difficult content. And the NPCs have quests for you to do, so you can choose which quests to take. You can also choose the rewards. So there'll be things like certain weapons, certain ammo, certain armor, certain backpacks, or certain resources or even modules sometimes. Like some of the quests just straight up give you a module to install in your base. And some of the NPCs will be part of a certain faction, and they're not all friendly at the start. Like the green soldiers will shoot you on sight unless you do quests for them. But if you do quests for them, you lower your reputation with the scientists, which is the competing faction. So you're gonna have to make choices as you take these quests and as you choose which quests to do for which NPC or which faction. And then once you set up a loadout with guns, backpack, armor, food, water, all your basic supplies, you'll select the map to load into. And then when you start the raid, you can pretty much do whatever you want. You can shoot whoever you want, you can loot wherever you want, and you can extract whatever you want. Now, each map has its own static points of interest. So you'll have like an industrial zone that, like on the forest map, you'll have an industrial zone that every time you go to that zone, it always looks the same. It's always the same setup in that zone, but that industrial zone will be different every time you load into a raid, along with the other points of interest. And then everything in between the points of interest will be randomly procedurally generated. That also goes the same for extract points, which will have like a green smoke. If you've ever played Tarkov, it's the same thing. You see the green smoke, you're in area, and then you stay there for a few seconds, and then you're back into base. Then when you come back to base, you hand in your quest, you choose your rewards, maybe you store some of the loot that you found back in your storage, you upgrade some weapons, you repair some other stuff, you take another quest, and you repeat. But it's really because of that procedural generation. That really makes the game stand out, because every time you load into a raid, the weather's different, or the areas are different, or the loot is different. Like, that loop gets very addicting very quickly. Once you get that groove going, and once you learn how to move around, and you start to get a hang of, even though it's random, you still understand the points of interest, so you start to learn the maps, and then you start to know which points to hit, so that you can get a very specific kind of loot that you're looking for. And that loop just keeps repeating. It's really addicting. There's also different enemy types, like mutants and animals, like wolves and boars, and giant mutants later on in the game. And I think the different enemy types paired with the procedural generation makes this game really stand out. You know, I've played Escape from Duckov. That game is really fun, and the title is kind of a play on Tarkov, but those games couldn't be any more different. Like, Tarkov is a hardcore first-person shooter. Duckov is like a more casual extraction game. But because of that procedural generation and the variety of enemies, I prefer this game over that game. Even though that game is pretty cool, this ends up being the winner. Ends up being the winner at the end, because that aesthetic, that vibe that this game gives you, that post-apocalyptic, like radiation, Chernobyl kind of vibe, that just sticks with me. That makes this my go-to game for this kind of genre. Now the controls, here is where the game paired with the Steam Deck absolutely shines. So you can play this game with both sticks, like a normal twin stick shooter, and you're gonna have to adjust the sensitivity quite a bit. It's pretty low at first, so you're gonna have to up it for the right stick. And I've got a setup where now the right stick is my primary go-to for aiming my gun. But for the first 50 hours that I played this game back in early access, I used the right trackpad. The trackpad in this game is amazing. It's the only shooter I played where I actually really like the trackpad. And I just had it where the right trackpad is a mouse, but if I click it, it shoots the gun. And then I use the left trackpad and the back buttons for all my other keybinds. Things like to use a bandage, or to use a med kit, or to sprint, to open my PDA, open my map. Both of these trackpads and the back buttons paired together, even if you're not using the right trackpad as a mouse, it fits this style of game, because this game is really meant for mouse and keyboard. But because the Steam Deck is just so versatile with its control scheme, and paired with Steam Input, where you can bind anything to anything, it makes it like the perfect form factor for this type of game. So much so that I never played this game on my main PC, even though it's kind of meant for that mouse and keyboard experience. All that being said, you may be saying, all right, this game looks pretty cool, but why this game over anything else like Balatro, Elden Ring, Megabonk, Hades? And I get it, all those games are great. Like, I've got way more hours in Balatro than I initially thought I would ever have when I first got that game. And Elden Ring, I think I finished that game on the deck. I beat Melania on the deck. And yet, this is the game I always come back to, because this game fits not only one of my favorite genres, but it also fits this form factor, and it also fits my gaming play style as I've gotten older. There's two things that are going on at the same time. This game has everything I'm looking for in this style of game: progression, difficulty, and the dynamic nature of it. When you load into a raid, sometimes enemies are fighting each other, sometimes it's super quiet, like you just never know what you're gonna get. And you don't need to sit in front of it for like 5 hours. You can boot this up, load a couple raids within an hour, make some meaningful progress, and then put it back to sleep. It's such a this kind of game in this genre, in this single player experience for this form factor, just fits that like 30 to 60 minute play session where you just want to jump into a game, do stuff that matters, and then turn it off and come back to it when you're not busy. The last thing you want when you load into a game is to watch a bunch of cutscenes, listen to a bunch of dialogue, and feel like you need 5 hours to get a meaningful play session. Those games you tend to not launch if you only have like 45 minutes to play. So this game fits that kind of play style where you just have 30 to 60 minutes. You just want to get in a couple raids, you know, get the loot and just get out and go do what you got to do during the day. As we get older and we start to accrue more responsibilities, we tend to not sit at our desktops too much or at our main gaming station. Sometimes you just want to lay in bed, play a game for, you know, like a half an hour, then put it away. And there's something about the Steam Deck that fits that. But there's also what games to play during those sessions, because not every game, like I said, is going to really fit 30 to 60 minute play sessions. As much as I really love Elden Ring, when I start that game up, like I'm going to end up playing for 3 to 4 hours. Like that's not the game I want to play when I only have like a half an hour. If I boot up Elden Ring, that half an hour is going to turn into 6 hours because I'm going to find a cave, it's going to lead to something else, and now my whole day is gone. So I got to stick to a game that I know I can get a lot done within 30 to 60 minutes. And that's where this game just fits perfectly. It's the genre too, but this game, it's special. It's different from the other ones. It's also how you can play it. You can play in an offline mode. You don't never need to connect to a Wi-Fi hotspot just to load into a game. So many games, you gotta like log into an account or like initially connect to the internet just to start it, and then you can put it in offline mode. Like this game, you don't have to do any of that. You can just launch it whenever you want and you're good to go. Zero Sievert just gets right to the point. It's as difficult as you want it to be. It's different every time you play. It's loaded with content and it feels great in this form factor, all for around 10 to 20 bucks, depending if you can get it on a sale. I bought it for full price in early access and I don't regret it. I've already gotten probably close to 100 hours that is not totally logged into Steam because half that playtime I'm just not online, so it doesn't account for it. But there's so much content here for that price point. And if anything I've said kind of resonates with you, I think this could be your new go-to game. Let me know in the comments what your favorite handheld game is. Does not have to be on a Steam Deck. It could be like any one of those retro handhelds that I see going viral on YouTube. It could be a competitor to the deck like the ROG Ally X or the Legion Go S. Whatever you're playing on, tell me your favorite game on that device. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Hit a like if you enjoyed it. See you guys next time.